All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another knowledge sharing session on HR mentorship. It's glad to be back here again to share knowledge. And today we'll be talking about very important topic, the manning up problem. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the female side of things, bringing women to the table, ensuring true inclusion for women. And I just thought that we need to have a balanced conversation because that episode, and for those who missed that episode, you could go to the YouTube channel and catch up on that conversation. It was a very fruitful and engaging conversation about how to ensure true inclusion for women in leadership and to make sure that inclusion was not just a box ticking exercise. But it's important to have a well-rounded conversation, which is why we're having this episode, which talks about the challenges men face, okay? And it's commonly called the manning up problem. You see, so whilst for women, we talked about creating an inclusive environment, on the flip side, we need to talk about how to create a supportive workplace for men. And you see, the challenge with talking about anything relating to men is that men are very good at so many things except talking, okay? I thank God I'm a man, so, and I identify as a man on the lighter note, but we have the silent struggle, okay, where even when we are drowning, okay, in order to maintain that machismo front, we don't speak up. And there's so many downsides to our not speaking up. It affects us, and in turn, in the larger picture, it affects the workplace. I hope I'm audible. I hope there's no, I've done the
Yes,
sounding
you are.
board.
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we will talk about this silent struggle that men go through, its effects on the workplace, and what we can do about it. I think the summary, if I were to summarize this conversation in one sentence, I'll just say it's okay not to be okay. All right. It's okay to ask for help. All right. As a man, we were psychologically programmed from birth that crying, display of emotions is a sign of weakness, okay? So as a result, men don't cry or we don't cry out. We ignore our emotions. We avoid difficult questions, difficult conversations that want to delve into deeper issues that are naturally common experiences, okay? Everybody goes through these moments. Practically, I remember my childhood best friend, okay? We were best of friends growing up. And he went through a very emotional breakup, all right? And he called me on the phone. He was like, yo, Patrick, could you come over? I came over to his house and he broke down in tears. He was crying. But while I was crying, he warned me, say, don't touch me. Don't touch me. And, I couldn't offer any kind of comfort. So I just kept quiet and I watched him when he was done crying. You know, he didn't even want to talk about it. He just wanted me there. And that's meant for you. Because growing up, we were inundated with the phrase man up, because it's a societal expectation from all men. Again, over the weekend, I went to, offer condolences to a close friend of mine who was bereaved. And, interestingly, it's an unspoken rule. I went to see him, but I couldn't talk about his bereavement. This is real life. On the flip side, whilst I was there, another mutual friend of both of us, who's a female, who called on the phone, you know, It's just natural with women. Women just want to talk about everything. They want to express their emotions. They want to communicate how they feel. And instantly she didn't care. She just said, oh, put the phone on speaker. I put the phone on speaker, and then she was immediately talking about it. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. Even though I've gone through it, it doesn't mean I understand how you feel. I just want, and I was like, wow, okay, this is interesting. You know, communication just comes naturally to women because it is expected that women talk, women express their feeling. But, you know, because we men have to man up, okay? So, if I may say, the word man up has become a derogatory remark. It implies that men should overcome their fears, overcome their pains, and overcome their uncertainties without necessarily seeking support. Because behind the facade of strength and resilience, okay, every man is vulnerable, and this vulnerability must be acknowledged and addressed. So it is crucial to create a world, and even in our various workplaces, okay, where men feel comfortable seeking help, and where even our male mental health is valued and prioritized. So the purpose of today's episode will be to break this silence and raise awareness, you know, that vulnerability, transparency is key to changing the societal perceptions of men. Like I said, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to ask for help. And I'll give you real life scenarios that have played out in the workplace where the masculinity of men have become our very own undoing. Or if I may to put it differently, men have become victims of their masculinity, okay? And we're paying the price. I'll give a real life scenario. This is no textbook. This happened real life, where a male employee was physically abused. Would I say yes? He was physically harassed, attacked rather, by a female colleague, and there was no consequence because he was expected to man up. What happened? The male colleague, he came to the company cafeteria. He was having lunch, and he picked the only seat that was available at the time that was directly facing the TV. And a female colleague of his came to the cafeteria and wanted to sit at that chair that had direct line of sight to the TV screen. And she asked him, politely, let me borrow Prof's name. Oh, Prof, please, can I sit in this chair? I want to watch the program on TV. And the male employee said no. He said, no, you can't sit in this seat because I'm here, I'm having my lunch. And the female colleague said, oh, why don't you go to this table or that table and have your lunch there so that I can watch the TV? And the male colleague said, no, I'm not going there. I'm already here. He had an earpiece, wired earpiece connected to his phone. And the first thing she did was she pulled out the earpiece from his ear, pulled it out of his phone, and, tossed it across the floor so that he would, supposedly get up from his seat. And in the process of getting up from his seat to pick up his earpiece, she would take over, his sitting position, and he refused to stand up. She carried his food, transferred it to the other table so that he would have no choice than to get up and go to the other table. And he still refused to get up. And at that point, she physically assaulted him, to push him off the chair. Of course, she was laughing while doing it. She didn't do it. It was aggressive, but would I say passive aggressive, or it presented itself in a it was an assault, but not done, cursing and screaming and insulting. It was done supposedly laughing. But, it's a joke that only one person will find funny. And she physically dragged the seat from under him and sat on it, So the only way he could retaliate was if he physically got her off the seat as well. Of course, smart young man, he didn't do that. He walked away and he sent an email to HR lodging an official report on the incident. But guess what? Even when a disciplinary committee was set up, both male and female members of the disciplinary committee said, "Oh, are you not a man? Why are you complaining? Is she not a lady? And you should man up now. Maybe she was playing with you," and yada, 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 yada. The matter was swept under the carpet. Again, that's a clear situation where the male masculinity, he was a victim of his male masculinity. There have been cases where, male employees were sexually harassed by female colleagues and it was laughed off. Okay, if a male colleague complains to HR and say a disciplinary committee is set up and the male colleague says, "Oh, this female colleague made unwanted sexual advances at him." Let us say the truth, okay? If we're going to be, you know me now, I like shaking tables, okay? If we're going to say it as it is, many male members of the committee will ask him, why is he slacking? Okay, but then having anything to do with a female must be consent mutually, there must be mutual consent. It is okay for a man not to consent. But in both scenarios, both cases of the sexual harassment and the physical harassment, I asked this question then. And I wasn't the only one that asked this question then, but both cases were swept under the carpet. If the situation was flipped and it was the man that physically harassed the woman that way, that disciplinary committee would have just been a box-ticking exercise. The guy should have just started looking for employment elsewhere. Same way, if a female cries foul in terms of sexual harassment, if the company doesn't do anything, I bet you human rights activist lawyers will be queuing to represent her in an action case against the company. But if a male comes out and cries out and says, "Hey, I was sexually harassed," I mean, even his fellow male colleagues would ask him, "Boy, why are you crying? Are you not a man? Man up." So of course, it's not the double standard that I'm focusing on, but what I'm trying to raise an awareness is the fact that we need, as HR professionals, to create an unbiased, supportive workplace for male men to feel safe, to feel, that's the word, to feel safe, to feel secure in asking for help, in seeking support. And this plays out in several ways. It plays out severally in several scenarios, okay? Another scenario that I recall clearly is where, and I must point out that sadly, and again, I'm shaking the table, but it's my usual nature. For those that know me, I like to shake the table. Yes, thank you, David. To feel safe and vulnerable, yes. It's important that we create an environment where men can feel safe and feel vulnerable while feel safe whilst being vulnerable. All right. And I'll say this to move on so that I don't overflog this. Women, sadly, have recognized this and in many situations have weaponized this against men. They've weaponized our masculinity against us. And I'll state this, there are cases where I know of a case where a male and female colleague had a normal, well, there's nothing normal about, but they just had irregular disagreements where, both of them strongly expressed their difference of opinions, right? But the next day, the lady came to the office, and while she was narrating it to her fellow female colleagues, right, they immediately told her, don't worry, just say he sexually harassed you. You see, you have no choice than to apologize. And guess what she did? She came and she started crying. She said, oh, she felt unsafe. She felt harassed. She felt like she was in danger of being physically attacked, and because of how, and both of them raised their voices at each other and strongly expressed their difference of opinion when the incident happened. But when she was recounting the incident, she made it seem like she felt unsafe because of his masculinity, okay? And she borderline started insinuating that, she felt he sexually harassed her. Immediately, the male colleague was advised to quickly go and apologize before it becomes an official issue. And he did that. So my point, that just drives the point I'm trying to make, which is men, there is no supportive environment for men. Okay. I like what Avitus says. He said, it's important to say that men are also human too, and we have feelings as well. I agree with you, Avitus. Yes, we have feelings as well, and it's okay for us to have feelings. All right. So as HR professionals, we should consciously create an environment where men can feel safe. I love the way Davida put it, where we feel safe and vulnerable, where we can feel safe and vulnerable. All right. So now, yeah. The truth about the manning up, it's also, maybe some people know it as a toxic masculinity. All right. There are several facets to this manning up challenge here in the workplace. One, it implies that we suppress our emotions, okay? Apart from the health consequences of suppressing your emotions, okay, it would affect your blood pressure. I'm not a doctor or mental health professional, so I'm not going to go into this in detail, but it's common sense to say you bottle up your emotions, it would affect you health-wise, okay? Why does this happen? Because expression of emotions you perceive as weak. When you see a man crying, for example, his fellow men and even women will look at him as being a weak man, okay? Because it's not acceptable socially for a man to be expressive of his emotions, okay? And this emotional repression can manifest in many ways as stress, burnout, and like I said, health problems, okay? And then this also creating, we'll talk about the impact of this in the workplace next. And then next negative impact is avoidance of vulnerability, okay? So because of this, men find it difficult seeking help. Men find it difficult admitting to their mistakes, okay? Or acknowledging limitations because it's seen as a sign of weakness. A man who apologizes is viewed as weak. A man who admits his mistakes or who asks for help is viewed as weak, all right? And so this can prevent men from seeking the necessary support and also hinder their professional development. So you have two interns, okay? One male, one female, and the male intern cannot ask for help, cannot seek support, cannot make mistakes, cannot feel vulnerable. He's more careful, he's less innovative because fear stifles innovation, and it just affects their personal and professional development, okay? And the only emotion, sadly, The only emotion that men can societally express without being viewed as weak is dominance and aggression. Okay, so dominance and aggression are traditional notions of masculinity. And these emotions sort of are being equated with strength. Okay, so it creates in turn a toxic work environment, okay, whereby conflicts, lack of empathy, and competition are the order of the day, because dominance and aggression are the only emotions that come that are acceptable for men. Okay, and then we'll talk about, look, what's the impact of this manning up on men? All right, so I've mentioned the health impact on, so we'll look at, first of all, in terms of mental health, it goes without saying, significantly men have higher suicide rates than women, okay, because our lack of expression have a negative impact on, on our mental health as a man. It will contribute to increased rates of stress, anxiety, depression, and like I said, even suicide. All right. So it is not something that we should overlook. It also impacts the work culture. So the manning up culture stifles, like I mentioned earlier, it stifles creativity, it stifles innovation, it even stifles collaboration, because aggression stifles collaboration. It creates a hostile environment for women and other marginalized groups, if we have them. And then it also prevents men from building strong, healthy relationships, okay? Are not being able to express ourselves, express emotions, express vulnerability. It hinders communication and hinders overall building healthy relationships. All right. So what are the consequences in the workplace? We've mentioned some of this on damage to the company reputation, okay? So negative cultures, they can destroy and negatively impact a company's reputation, decrease innovation. I mean, lack of feeling safe would contribute to stifles your creative thinking. I mentioned that, of course, toxic environments can drive good employees away, increase conflict. I mean, aggression, competition, and all these will lead to conflict. And then overall, it will reduce the productivity, because employees are less productive when they are under stress or on their emotions are suppressed. I mean, you have human beings who will just not be able to give their best because their level of, when you look at employee engagement, there are 3 dimensions to employee engagement. There's the hands, there's the head, there's the hearts. Those are the 3 H's of employee engagement. When emotions are suppressed, the hands may be there, the head may be there, may or may not, but the hearts will definitely not be there. Okay? Okay, Davida says, some organizations assume men shouldn't have sick leaves. Oh, this is very practical. Thank you, Davida. So it's not said publicly, but it's kind of a surprise when a man goes on sick leave, except for obvious health challenges, like maybe a fractured leg or, or shot by bullets, Yeah, so again, there's this expectation that all men should be superheroes, supermen, flying around with capes and all. Again, it's there because, if a woman feels stressed, I mean, she cries and everybody rallies around behind her. But a man feels stressed. What's he told? Are you not a man? Come on, man up. Okay. So yes, Davida is on point. Again, like I said, as men, we are victims of our own masculinity. Let me give a practical example to explain what Davida said. Once upon a time while I was working, I was on my way home with 3 other colleagues in the car, right? and we're driving home late from work one day, and we were all robbed. I was the one driving, and all the windows of the vehicle were smashed. All our valuables were stolen by the assailants, and we all sustained minor injuries, and it was a traumatic experience for all of us. So in fact, there were five of us in the car. I was driving, there was another male, and there were three females. Two out of the females were colleagues. One was not a colleague, just joined us for the trip. So there were two male colleagues, inclusive of myself, and two female colleagues, all right? Do you know that? I'm serious. All of us were in the same robbery situation. All of us had our valuables stolen, okay? I was even the driver of the vehicle, all right? So I think I had it worse because the assailants focused on me as the driver of the vehicle. But you know that when this incident was reported in the office, the two females that were involved were asked to take the rest of the week off. I, yours faithfully, I came to work the next day. In fact, they just called in and were granted by phone call the rest of the week off. Myself, I came to office the next day. All I got was, oh, are you okay? Okay, that's fine. That's it. We heard what happened. Hope you're okay. Okay. Of course, when they ask you, are you okay? The answer to are you okay is fine. Remember what I said? It's okay not to be okay. I mean, it was acceptable for the females who were involved in the same incident. It was acceptable for them not to be okay. But I and my other male colleague involved in the same incidents, we had to man up, quote and unquote. We had to come to the office. Okay, Avitu says, so true. They say use Panadol and come to work. Yeah, I was for years, and I'll say even till now, I don't drive. For those in Lagos, I do not cross from mainland to island once it's a certain time of the night of the day. Okay, I still find I'm still suffering from PTSD. Once I find myself in traffic, I see myself looking left, right, center, because of that traumatic experience. All right. But sorry, yeah, I'm talking to everyone on the call. Who do I seek help from without looking or being seen as weak? Okay. I'm sure as I'm saying that, maybe Prof is here laughing at me. Patrick, man up now. What's that? This happened years ago. Yes, it happened years ago, but I mean, trauma is trauma, and anything can trigger that trauma in you if you've not healed properly. You've not sought the right help to get over this. Okay? So point is, vulnerability from men is not entertained. Okay? Okay. Very interesting question, Prof. PTSD, post-traumatic stress, is it this post-traumatic stress disorder? That's what PTSD means. Okay, so yeah, that's what it means. After a traumatic situation, memories of it would still cause stress disorders in those victims. Okay, so yeah, and that's meant for you. We are human beings, and we should be allowed to be humane. Okay, and I'll wrap up with this. Let's talk about addressing the problem. Okay, we need to promote a culture of empathy and support for men. We need to create, as HR, a safe space for employees to express their emotions and seek support. We need to encourage open communication and active listening. I recall a situation where an employee was going through, a male employee who was going through a messy divorce, right? And he was potentially he was going to lose his kids, you know, and it was messing up with his psychology. He was zoning out in the middle of meetings. It affected his productivity, and he was on the verge of losing his job. All right. When it was brought to my attention as HR, thank God we had an employee assistance program. And once I called him, I had a conversation and he told me what happened. I mean, he was close to tears. I enrolled him on the EAP. He got professional help and he was okay. He healed and he was back on his feet. All right. But that took the personal intervention of myself as head of HR to ensure that that safe space was created for him. On the flip side, another employee who was an only child and was bereaved of a dad, you know, was, what's the word again? She needed grief counseling, okay? She was in grief for over about 2 to 3 months because an only child losing the only living parents they had left. In fact, she was an only child and she was brought up by a single parent. And then she now lost that single parent that raised her. I mean, this lady was in grief for up to 3 months. We had to send her for grief counseling, and that was the journey to recovery. Okay? But because she was a lady, it was accepted. Had she been a man, do you think that empathy would have been available? I'm not sure. Oh, Adepoju says, oh, he's passing through this stage right now. From the day he joined the company, he's presently working. And I mean, Adepoju, I mean, you need support. Please feel free to reach out to Prof. And, if there's any kind of support, we can give, we're happy to support you because it shouldn't be a case of women supporting women. Men should be there to support men as well. And the women that love us should be there to support us too. Okay? We need to challenge these traditional notions of masculinity. All right? We need to promote a more inclusive and understanding, a more inclusive understanding, rather, of what masculinity is. We need to emphasize the importance of emotional intelligence and vulnerability for men. All right? It's okay for a man. Look, oh gosh, can I say this? There was a point in time I went through something that was very trying for me, and I needed to cry. It was something that happened at work. I was wrongly accused of something I didn't do. All right. An email query was sent to me and I was pained to my bone marrow. What did I do? I called a friend that was the only person I knew could understand what I was going through. I called him up on the phone and I broke down in tears. I didn't say a word. I'm not saying silent tears where you're talking and tears are, no, I broke down. Those kind of tears that leave you stammering, stuttering, with catarrh coming out of your nose. Those were the kind of tears I broke down into. And he just allowed me cry. And he was able to console me because I knew he had gone through exactly the same thing I was going through. All right. This is one of those conversations where we just have to have, okay? We need to provide mental health resources for men. Offer access to, I've seen EAPs when they are run by solid professionals who know their job, who know their onions. I've seen it provide support for, for men, okay? Encourage your male employees to seek help when they need, because It's not a stigma to be able to seek help. Train line managers to recognize the signs of stress and emotional distress in men. Equip them with the skills they need to provide support and guidance. And I think as HR, we should lead by example, okay? And create and encourage leaders to lead by example, okay? They should model healthy behaviors and demonstrate vulnerability. We should normalize emotional expression in the workplace, okay? It's okay if you use, I mean, I've seen female managers cry when they are stressed, okay? But if a male manager wants to cry, allow him without being looking at that person as weak. Long story short, we need to consciously create a supportive environment, you know, where if we need to bring a coach, a therapist, a counselor, you know, join a healthy men's group or something where these things can be discussed and we can promote that culture of support for men. Oh, Davida says, insist on equal penalty for both genders for the same offense. Davida, I could hug you for that. Recall the first example I gave. A female employee physically assaulted a male employee, and it was laughed and swept off under the carpet because everybody's like, she's not a woman, and maybe they were playing. You know, a female employee sexually harassed a male employee, and then the male employee was the one that was being verbally reprimanded that, a whole man like you, a woman is giving you green lights, quote and unquote, and then you are slacking. You know, I didn't want to put it that way, but that's exactly how it was put to the male employee. Why are you slacking? What's wrong? But sexual harassment is defined as any unwanted sexual, directly or indirect, direct or indirect or overt sexual advance. Okay? So long as it's not wanted, it's sexual harassment, whether it's done by a male or a female. So lending credence to what Davida said, equal penalty, okay, when it comes to sexual, gender, based offenses, okay? So in conclusion, by addressing the manning up problem, organizations can create a healthy, more productive, and more inclusive work environment for all. So in conclusion, my final words would be, please, all the men on the call, remember, you are not alone in this journey. Reach out, seek support, and begin to prioritize, your mental well-being. And final words to all men, please remember this. If you don't remember anything, you are worth it. All right, thank you. Do we have questions, comments? If we have questions or comments, feedback, I think we can take them right now. So if you have any question, maybe you can raise your hand. We would unmute you. Okay, Janet has her hand raised.
Thank you so much, sir, for that brilliant presentation. Any contribution, questions for our erudite facilitator?
But Janet has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Janet.
Janet, you can unmute yourself. Janet, please unmute yourself so you can speak. Okay, Janet, if you are finding it difficult to unmute, maybe you can put your comments in the chat box. We would address your comment or your question. if you cannot unmute. Does anybody else have a comment? Okay, Janet is saying we should allow her to unmute.
Okay, attempt to unmute now, Janet.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Janet.
Yeah, thank you. In short, this topic looked somehow strange to me, when I saw it initially. I'd even forgotten, but somehow I just remember that like there's something going on. So I came late, and I think I've enjoyed little I heard. But I'm a bit concerned. I'm a female HR manager. I'm managing a group of companies. We are like 5 subsidiaries, and somehow I noticed this man up thing. Fine, it's been there. Well, I noticed that guys don't really like to open up to me as a female HR manager. I've witnessed 2 cases where a supervisor, a senior supervisor, was having challenge at home. I think oil. His wife mistakenly poured palm oil or hot oil or whatever. There was an accident at home, and it was very, very bad on one of the child. So this guy was really going through a lot of trauma, because of that, hospitals and the rest of that. Then he kept it to himself, and small thing, we get angry, we react, until it took somebody to say, another colleague to say, this guy, something, he will come late, what's going on? Why are you doing that? He won't say anything. He will just be angry. Small thing will flare up. But that kind of person, if he had come to me to say, okay, this is what happened, though, I could have even say, okay, take some time off also so you can face your family and spend. The men don't talk. I don't know, maybe because I'm a woman, don't want to talk. You just see me as a woman, No matter how I've tried to, bring myself, to make my approachable, to be approachable and the rest. But I notice that ego is there. That okay, this person is a woman. Do I have to go and start crying for a woman? And what you said now, there are 2 cases of staff that have had going through divorce stage where their children were almost taken from them. I never heard it. And they were going through a lot until somehow it started affecting their work, and so on and so forth. Until eventually somebody said this, I was like, what? So now how will somebody handle this type of thing when the men themselves, they have their own ego? They don't want to talk. Probably if it were a male HR, fine, they would have opened up. But being a female HR, how do I make them, to open up? They'll be since they are looking at me as a woman.
All right, Janet, I love your practical situation. You really are bringing this home practically. But let me tell you this first of all. Men are not talking to you because you are a female. Men don't talk naturally. Prof, you're a man. Please agree to disagree. Men are, like I said during the presentation, right? Men find it naturally difficult to be vulnerable. Okay? And I'll give you a practical situation, right? If there's a death in a family, right? It is acceptable for the woman to cry, to grieve, to roll on the floor, to do all those antics and expressions of grief. But societally, the man is just expected to be okay. All right? So there is this, it's not about you, Janet. It is a societal expectation that as a man, you should be, for lack of a better choice of word, you should be big, strong, reliable. You should be invulnerable. Those are the perceptions of men. So because of this societal perception that men live up to, right? It is expressing weakness. It's not, it doesn't come naturally to any man. Okay? Avisu says, at death, they say to men, don't cry, be a man. In Yoruba, they say, Shebi Okunrin. Thank you, Avitus. Are you not a man? Shebi Okunrin. So, expressing emotions, expressing all of that, as a man, it is viewed as being weak. And I'll give you one practical, real life situation. So during COVID, right, there was a male, of course, during COVID, there was lockdown. So there was a male employee who his wife was based outside the state he was working in. So for the 6 months plus period of lockdown, he was not able to travel home to be with his wife, okay? Do you know that because of that extended and protracted period of physical absence, his wife packed out of his house, moved into another man's house, and she did not just pack out of his house. When she packed out of his house, she packed all his belongings, everything down to the bedroom slippers. Okay? Everything down to the bedroom slippers, she packed it and moved into the new man's house. By the time he found out, this man was broken. But guess what? He couldn't cry. Who could he talk? Now, I am the male head of HR. I got to find out when it was affecting his employment, when it was affecting his job, and he was on the brink of losing his job due to a drop in his productivity. That it was at that point I found out. So, Janet, don't be angry. It's not a you problem. It's a general men's problem. We don't talk naturally about our emotions, our weaknesses, our challenges. We don't talk about it. All right. So you're going to have to work hard to get men to express themselves. It's not you. Thank you, Davida. Sorry, thank you, Janet. Davida, your hand is raised. Please unmute yourself and share.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, the organizers. Thank you, Mr. Patrick. I'm really, really excited about this topic because discussing it is part of the solution. So I was raising my hand to just add a few. And then at first, I wanted to address us as HRs or as leaders, business leaders. We must be very intentional in driving this conversation. I mean, if you bring this up as a discussion in some offices, people will just sweep it under the carpet. I mean, they say things like, what is that one now? How is that one a conversation? It's what it is. We just want to accept the way the society has built it. And it's very difficult to challenge the status quo. And we are comfortable with closing our eyes to the effect of these things. But then if you bring out this conversation, just as Janet rightly said, people are not quick to open up regarding issues like this. And I think personally, from my experience, I think these are hinged on two things. First of all, it's integrity and antecedents. Like, to what extent can I trust my HR that if I open up, I won't hear it in another person's mouth? Or my HR will not have a gist. In fact, those things happen. People open up to HR and then they go to the office cafeteria, and it's a story they told HR in the morning that people are using to gist in the afternoon. So if that happens once or twice, why will another person want to tell HR what he or she is going through? Why would somebody want to open up? When I'm laughed at, when somebody hears my story and then uses it to make a LinkedIn post and guides it in a way and say Mr. X and Mrs. Y, but then we know your this is where you're going to, and you do it the way that these people feel insulted, they are mocked, they are ridiculed. So they come to themselves and say, is it not better I just die in silence? Why should I even say it? You shared your story that it was kind that you had a friend who understood. Some other friend would have said, is that why you are crying? Are you even serious? Are you sure something else is not wrong? But because you have someone who could understand, then it becomes easy. So we should be intentional about understanding people's pain and treating them the way we expect them to treat us, or people to treat us. And as HRs, we have the privilege for policy. So my second point is driving this thing home down to the policies. For example, the International Women's Day was just celebrated about a couple of weeks ago. Let's wait for International Men's Day, sometime in November, I think, or October. Let's wait for International Men's Day. You're going to see the disparity is very clear. Very, very clear. People sold clothes. People did ashwebi in offices. Ladies were taken out. You had very beautiful things happening to female colleagues and all that. But how many times does this same thing happen for International Men's Day? Why do we celebrate the women so much and then the men has nothing to be celebrated? So you leave them with agitation. They bottle this thing up, and the only way they can express it is through things that looks like violence. In Nigeria, only 2 states in the entire federation have implemented paternity leave. I don't know of any other state apart from Lagos and Enugu states. How many of our organizations even have paternity clause in their policies? Even, let's say, for just 3 days. So a man's wife put to bed, and the only time he can see the child is when he's done from work. How fair is that? We understand that the woman carries the baby and she needs to breastfeed the child. That's true. If you give the woman 3 months, how about giving the man 1 week? Not even 3 days. So we must bring this as a conversation around our policies. It must be spelled out black and white in our policies that this thing, the penalty, is not gender-based. It's for everybody. The way we pay everybody, that's how everybody gets their own penalty, proportionate to the offense you did, not because of your gender. And thirdly, I wanted to say that this is a society thing, and we are all factors of the society. We are part and parcel of the society. Who built the society? Who made it a narrative? We can decide to change our narrative. And this starts from the home. This starts from the church, not just in the office. So as children, as parents, you have your kids, and everybody's supposed to wash their uniforms or wash their plates when they are done eating or something. And then you say something like, are you not a man? Wash your younger sister's own now. So the boy grows up, or the girl grows up, to think that wherever there are men, they should do my job for me. So you see colleagues in the office saying things like, so who will lock the door when we are done? And the person will say, you will be man, you dey talk, if you not be man, now you go lock am. As if that padlock will spoil if it's in the hands of a woman. It's not about, if you want someone to help you, say, please help me do this because my hands cannot reach it. Maybe I'm not as tall as you are, but not because you are a man. People should, as children, as parents, when we are raising children, we should be deliberate about making those things to them. And I'm not saying this, to start with, I'm anti-feminism. So I'm not saying this as a feminist, or it's not a feminist story. It's a humanist story. It's the fact that every human being deserves love and empathy. So we don't raise children, or you are in a church and you are the HOD of maybe ushering department, and you're saying we are picking the benches after service. And I say the guys carry 20 benches while the ladies carry 10. What is the reason? On what basis? So let us spell it out in the society that no gender was made to suffer at the detriment of another. I understand when you say, okay, because some of our ladies here may be stressed and some of them may be on their periods and maybe they may have cramps and may not want to admit it, brothers carry the benches. That's easier. That's a better way of letting people know that this particular group may have tendency for XYZ, and it's on that basis. So they don't grow up to think that it is because I'm a woman, that's why this should happen to me. In conclusion, I want to end by saying that if women can fight for equal pay, if we're saying don't pay a man more than me, which is right, then we should also understand that a man should not be punished more than you. If we pay everybody the same salary for the work they do, then everybody should get the same penalty or punishment for the work they did not do or for the things they do wrongly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet, Davida. I mean, you were spot on in everything you said, and I don't know, I couldn't have said it better. I really couldn't. Thank you very much. Avitus, you can't raise your hand, but you'd like to comment. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was very wonderful presentation, spot on. And I would like to just take from where Davida spoke. She actually spoke my mind on some key issues that I wanted to discuss or talk about. One, I wanted to say that I feel is based on the upbringings that men had in the society, gender roles, gender expectations. And I think right now the narrative is kind of changing in the way I would say the younger generation, maybe we the millennials, are already bringing up the Gen Zs and the generation Alpha. You understand? There's a more equal and balanced role. Both the men and the women kind of play the same gender roles in the, let's say for instance in the house. For I take myself for an instance, my daughter and my son, they do almost the same thing in the house. You know, you do it today, the next one he does it, because that was how I was raised at a particular time. I cook, I clean the house, I wash the car. You know, those are the roles that both men and women do. So that is what I think is actually playing out in the younger generations to come. But the only challenge that I feel that is happening is that the way the younger generation, especially the Gen Zs, actually express themselves, maybe through social media. They just go online, post, say their minds out, say it's everybody hears. They are so disgruntled about everything. But I think what we should do now is for them to be able to channel their grievances, their ability to speak through the proper channel, so that attention can be given to them to address their issues as they come up. So that's about what I actually want to talk about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Avitus. I was worried that, you see, I was talking about men not speaking, so Avitus came to the rescue. Thank you. So we have men speaking as well. I was worried that only females in the persons of Janet and Davida, had spoken. So I'm happy, men are contributing to this topic. It'll be nice to hear more male voices. I mean, not that I'm saying the female can't speak, but I mean, this is a male problem, right? And we'll take one or two more comments from males if we want to talk. We're saying we should talk. Anyone? Man, let's talk. Chibundu. Richard. Jerry. These are some males. Tunde, Folarin. If you're on the call, please let's hear your contribution as men. All right. Okay. I think in the absence of any contribution.
Sorry, can you hear me, please?
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Chibundu.
Okay, please excuse the noise at the background. Thank you so much for this topic. Popped in late and it's very interesting. A few questions I have. I see that we've spoken so much on men don't talk and the challenges as to upbringing and its narrative, how that's played out in their lived experiences. But I want to ask, we see most of our ladies, so many are coaches out there, life coaches, NPL and all of that. Do we have a body of therapists and coaches for men in this regard, just in case, like Janet made her own case, just in case men within organizations are not able to speak to ladies that are head HRs, then we can refer them to people they can speak to, and the organization can manage that. That's my. Then to further add, and thank you, I think Davida spoke so much. Yeah, she further helped with bringing more light into areas of employee engagement that one can initiate for men within the organization. So I'd like my question to be answered as well. Thank you.
Yes. So the first question, there are several male coaches out there. whilst I may not, or rather, I do not want to endorse any, quote and unquote, but if you go to, is it the ICF, International Coaching Federation, if I got it right, you have lots of certified male coaches. I know a couple of them. Yes, I know a couple of them, but I don't know if, yes, certified, the ICF, it's a International Coaching Federation for professional coaching. They do career coaching, they do different forms of, coaches. And then I know several male executive coaches, right? They do executive coaching as well, and several of them are male. There are some very renowned ones. I've had to organize an executive coaching for my C-suite before. And, interestingly, all the executive coaches that were in the pool were all male. There are many, I mean, if I may just name a few of the very most renowned ones, I know Lanre Olushola is one of the renowned coaches here in Nigeria. There's oh gosh, what's his name? Oh, there's one guy, his name just skipped me right now. But if you reach out, I could give you a couple of male recommendations, right? And depending on your budget. But the ICF has tons of certified coaches in Nigeria, okay? And if you go to the website and go on LinkedIn and just try and narrow your search to people who are ICF certified, yes, you would see a handful of recommendations, all right? I don't know if that's kind of addresses your comments, Chibundu.
Yes, thank you so much.
Great. Tutu, I see you've unmuted yourself. You want to ask a question or make a comment? Okay, Tutu has muted herself back. All right. Okay, if there's any other comment or question, in the absence of any other comment, question.
Thank you so much, everyone. Let's thank Patrick. Thank you so much. Please.
Prof, your bandwidth is low. I don't know if you're still speaking. We can't hear you.